the building, so that's not a good move by the Raiders. But according to Diana Rossini, the Jets and the Cowboys, your Jets and Fox's Cowboys, Jerry Jones' Cowboys, are talking. So let's start with the premise of this. The Raiders have leverage. Their coach and their GM are brand new. Mark Davis, there's no urgency, I was told, to win today. That helps them. Again, Antonio Pierce messing around on social media, not smart. Stay out of that stuff. Lets everybody in the league knew what the Raiders privately knew is Devante Adams and Antonio Pierce, regardless of if they deny it or not, they're not tight. So let's start with the Jets. Impulsive owner. That's something. Team needs a boost offensively. They scored 9 points against Denver at home. And don't overlook this. The Mets are in the playoffs. The Yankees are in the playoffs. The Knicks just made a huge trade. The Jets have always been a low self-esteem sports franchise. They love relevance. Consider this. Aaron's 40. The rest of this year and next year, that's the window. Consider this. They're facing ex-Jet Sam Darnold in a standalone game. Everybody's watching. Consider this. Woody Johnson, the owner, former ambassador to the UK, appointed by Trump. All his friends will be in the box with Woody Johnson. Billionaires do not like to be embarrassed, and Minnesota's been embarrassing a lot of teams this year. Also, Aaron and Devante are tight. The GM and the coach have to win now. And if you look at the schedule, there is a lot of good defenses coming up. Minnesota, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Houston. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be scoring 9 points. You got some defenses coming up. Some of those teams can score, but a lot of good defenses coming up for a team that is challenged offensively, where if you roll over coverage to Garrett Wilson, you kind of eliminate the offense. Let's go to the Cowboys, because Diana Rossini says it's the Jets and the Cowboys. So the general manager of the Cowboys is the owner, so he's not under pressure. Jerry Jones actually is not impulsive. We've said this countless times. He's kind of the opposite. He was very, very impatient on Jason Garrett. He's been very, very patient with Mike McCarthy, who most fans wanted out of the building. Jerry's not impulsive. Sometimes he's the opposite. Also, the Dallas Cowboys aren't seeking headlines in Dallas. They're the only story. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening in Dallas. There's not another NFL team. It's the Cowboys. And they also have a star receiver in CeeDee Lamb. Yes, Devante would help Dak be better. Nobody would argue that. But Dallas needs two other things, namely a run game. They're 32nd in the league in running the football. So this would make them more pass-centric, more down-the-field reliant. They can't run the football at all. And that's how you keep the ball away from a Kyle Shanahan offense or a Green Bay offense or presumably an Atlanta or a Baker Mayfield offense. A run game. So that's their key. They don't have an impulsive owner. The GM's not on the hot seat. They're not fighting for attention like the Jets are. So all roads, to me, point to the New York Jets. And here's the other thing. I would admit yesterday I got all excited. Jerry, send that Gulfstream to Vegas. And I was thinking about this last night. So let's say they land Devante Adams with CeeDee Lamb. You know what you are? The Miami Dolphins. A really expensive wide receiver room with issues everywhere else. Do you want to ever be the Miami Dolphins? The speedboat of the NFL. A lot of flash and not really functional. So to me, at the very least for the Jets, and do not overlook this, it's good PR. If the Mets and the Yankees start reeling off W's, NBA had their media day yesterday, the Knicks look like a potential championship team. Giants don't appear to be terrible. You get blown out by Minnesota, you could be the last story by Tuesday of that week for the next month. And the Jets have always sought relevance as a franchise. This is an owner who spent time in London. The team is going to London. Here is Sam Darnold, who's on fire. Billionaires do not like to be embarrassed. To me, the Jets feel like they're very much in play. And the Raiders, again, have not had leverage much in the last 20 years. But Tom Telesco, the GM, and Antonio Pierce, the coach, have been assured, and I believe this is part of a building process. They've been running through coaches. They've been running through GMs. They want to plant a flag here with these guys for the next several years. So speaking of Miami, Tua is now symptom-free. But because they put him on the IR, he will not be available until week 8. That's how it works. But he's symptom-free. And I was thinking about Miami and how popular they got over the last several years. And I think a lot of it, to be honest with you, was the head coach, Mike McDaniel. He looks like a sports reporter. He's analytic and smart and funny at the podium. He's built for the media to love. He got a lot of emotions and a lot of crazy looks. He's very clever. Not your typical football coach. He's smart. A lot of bells and whistles. Outside the box thinker. So you know the media is going to fall in love with him. But you know what? Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid use a lot of motion. And they use a lot of sets. And they're clever. But their teams are physical and tough. And when I look at Miami, let's be honest, a lot of flavor, but I'm never full. That's what it feels like to me. A lot of sizzle, not a lot of steak. Headlines flash. Wow, look at that. And what are they? 2 really fast wide receivers. And this is when you know an operation cares about the wrong stuff. So if Tua is your quarterback, and I like Tua, I wouldn't give him a huge deal with a concussion issue, said that before the season started. I wouldn't have done it. But if you have Tua, okay, you've made the decision. There's 2 things you got to have. A really good backup quarterback and a really strong offensive line. Maybe not Lions strong, but at least, like Indianapolis or Atlanta strong. And yet the Dolphins are below average at both. Backup quarterback and offensive line. But they have the most expensive wide receiver room in the league and a coach that's super smart at the podium. And I'm not denying Mike McDaniel is a really bright guy. But Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan and McVay are too. And they love to run the football. And when I think of the Rams Super Bowl team and Aaron Donald and the run game, it was physical. And Andy's teams and Spags, they're physical. In San Francisco, Debo and McCaffrey and Mason and Kittle, it's physicality. A lot of this Miami thing to me feels like a house of cards. Is that it's all sizzle and all receivers and a lot of flavor, and I'm never, ever full. So it just, when Atlanta got crushed for having 2 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, how good would Miami be right now if they drafted Michael Penix? And some people got on Minnesota. Well, why you bring in Darnold? You have J.J. McCarthy, who was so good in college, play him. You know who's winning these days? Minnesota and Atlanta. You know who's not? Miami. So this league, and I understand it in other sports. In baseball, you buy your trophies. There's just a huge gap between the haves and have-nots financially in baseball. In the NBA, I understand it's aesthetics, it's culture, it's style. I like it. But the NFL comes down to good coach, good quarterback, physicality. For the Dolphins to sign Tua to that deal and still have a shaky O-line and be well below average at backup quarterback tells you they care about the wrong things. We wish Tua luck. He's symptom-free. He'll be back